Change begins within you, a bird's first flight that changed everything. Article story high in the ancient forest where the emerald canopy touched the blue horizon, there lived a young bird named Leora. She was smaller than her siblings, quieter than the flock, and far more uncertain about the world than she ever wished to admit. The treetop nest where she grew up had always been her sanctuary, but it had also become a gentle prison of fear. Every day, the wind whispered through the branches, calling her name, telling her that the world was vast beyond measure and that her wings were meant to carry her farther than she could imagine. Yet every day Leora turned her face away from the open sky. Her siblings had all flown before her, each one brave, confident, and full of the fire she felt she lacked. They soared with excitement, riding the currents effortlessly, laughing as they explored valleys and rivers far below. When they returned, they brought tales of clouds that glowed gold at sunrise, of mountains draped in mist, and of meadows filled with flowers that danced like flames. Leora listened with wonder, but she also felt a quiet ache inside her chest, an ache born from the belief that such adventures were not meant for her. Leora's fear was not the fear of falling. It was the fear of failing. She feared she would flap too weakly, dive too quickly, or crash too clumsily. She feared that the world would laugh at her, or worse, that the world would not care at all. And so she stayed perched in the nest, watching the horizon but never touching it. Days passed, then weeks, then the season began to shift. The air grew cooler, leaves turned gold, amber, and crimson. Migration approached, a journey every bird knew instinctively they had to make. Leora understood the implication. If she did not learn to fly soon, she would be left behind. Her mother, wise and gentle, noticed Leora's unease and perched beside her one quiet morning. "The sky is waiting for you," she said softly, "but more importantly, you are waiting for yourself." "I am not ready," Leora whispered. "No one ever feels ready," her mother replied. "Readiness is not something you feel, it is something you choose. Change begins within you, not around you." Leora looked down at her wings, small, fragile, trembling. Could they really carry her? Could she truly rise above the fear that held her down? Her mother continued, "Every bird flies for the first time only once. But every bird must choose to trust themselves again and again. The sky does not demand perfection, it asks only for courage." Courage, that word lingered in Leora's mind long after her mother returned to her duties. Courage was not the absence of fear, she realized. Courage was the decision to move despite it, and for the first time in her life, Leora wondered what might happen if she simply tried. That afternoon, as golden sunlight draped itself across the forest, Leora stepped toward the edge of the nest. Her heart pounded like a drum, her wings twitched with uncertainty. The world below seemed impossibly far away, a patchwork of green, shadow, and light. The wind brushed against her feathers as if nudging her forward with gentle encouragement. She closed her eyes and whispered to herself, "Change begins within me." Then she jumped. For a moment, everything was soundless. The wind roared around her, and the world spun in dizzying shapes. She flapped once, too weakly. She flapped again, awkward and steady. Her heart soared and sank at the same time. She was falling, but she was also learning. Her wings caught the air, just barely, but enough. And then something incredible happened. She rose, not high, not gracefully, but undeniably. She rose. Her wings found rhythm, strength, and purpose. Her body aligned with the current. The world didn't shrink beneath her. It opened. She saw the river glistening like ribbon silver. She saw the mountains whispering ancient secrets. She saw herself not as the frightened bird she had believed herself to be, but as someone discovering the strength she always carried inside. Her first flight was short, clumsy, and imperfect, but to her, it was everything. When she returned to the branch, panting but glowing, her flock cheered not because she had flown flawlessly, but because she had chosen to fly. Over the following days, Leora practiced tirelessly. She wove through branches, skimmed the treetops, and challenged the winds that once intimidated her. Every flight taught her something new about balance, about patience, about trust, but the lesson that stayed with her most was the one she had learned before ever leaving the nest. Change begins within you, not in your circumstances, not in the world, but in your decision to rise. When the day of migration finally arrived, Leora stood ready, wings strong and heart steady. For the first time, she did not fear being left behind. She knew that the sky belonged to her just as much as it belonged to any bird who dared to claim it. As the flock lifted into the air, Leora soared beside them, her wings catching the golden currents of dawn. The journey ahead was long, full of uncertainty and challenge, but she welcomed it with open wings, for she had learned that every great change, every great story, every great flight begins with a single moment of belief, a belief that whispers softly yet powerfully, "You can." And from that simple whisper, everything changes.